Well, what a brilliant, enthralling and dramatic Singapore Grand Prix. We said it should be worth the wait. 3 years plus the extra rain-affected hour. And my goodness me, wasn't it? Sergio Perez wins the Singapore Grand Prix, his 4th career victory. Safety car investigation pending. Charles Leclerc is P2 and Carlos Sainz, his Ferrari teammate, P3, while Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen had days to forget. Welcome to F1 Live, your post-race show. And welcome to a bustling paddock after the most dramatic and chaotic Singapore Grand Prix. We were trying to make note of everything that went on, but it was just incredible, wasn't it? My co-host joins me now, Pietro Fittipaldi, Haas reserve driver. Pietro, top note, your reaction to what we've just seen, because it was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy all the way to the finish line. Obviously, in the beginning, the track dries very fast here, but it was taking so long. Even we saw that in qualifying, so I was thinking maybe there was going to be a chance of starting on slicks, but there definitely wasn't. So everybody started on intermediate tires and went quite a long way, into the race before actually changing to slicks. But it was very difficult in terms of strategy, very difficult in terms of getting out of the pits on slick tires, holding on to the car. We saw Russell was one of the first cars changing to that tire, and he had a tough time doing so. But I'm very happy for Sergio. He's a good friend of mine, so happy he got the win, and I hope he keeps the win.
Yeah, absolutely. We must say that we are still awaiting, of course, the steward's decision on the safety car infringement. It is being investigated, whether it indeed will be 2 5-second penalties, as Ferrari believe it will be on both safety car restarts, dropping back the 10 car lengths, or indeed just 1, in which case Sergio Perez will keep the race win. We are waiting to find out. It's an unusual position to be in. But yes, just a word on Checo, because I heard him say on the race radio afterwards, that is the way we do it. We keep our mouths shut, we get our heads down, and we get the job done. And that is exactly what he did. Yeah,
he did a great job. And I think for him as well, I'm confident he'll get the win, but let's see what happens. But I think it was important as well. It keeps his hope still for the championship. Obviously, Max is quite a bit ahead, but you never know what can happen. He goes into Suzuka, kind of not a home race for Red Bull, but for Honda, going in there with some momentum. Who knows if, he can keep up this streak of wins. And and I think a very solid job by him, executed. He was under a lot of pressure by Charles there at the end, and then at the end was able to open a 7.5-second lead.
The Mexican Minister of Defense, well and truly living up to his nickname there, wasn't he? What a battle with Charles Leclerc. But as things stand, Sergio Perez is leading the way. So much of the attention was focused on his teammate, Max Verstappen, but it was Perez who got the job done, or did he? Well, still waiting to see. We can cross now, though, to Sam Collins for more, Sam, on this safety car restart and what exactly Sergio Perez may have gone wrong.
Yeah, this is all to do with leaving a gap between the safety car and the leading car in the race, which was Sergio Perez. The rules state you must leave 10 car lengths between the leading car, or between the cars, and the safety car. Now, you can see this is what's going on here. Now, take a look at the safety car down here. You can see it in the bottom corner of the screen. The safety car's there. The lights are out. That's important. Now, Sergio Perez, he's back there, just a little bit more than 10 car lengths. He's allowed to do that because the safety car lights have gone out. Once the safety car lights go out, the leader of the race essentially becomes the safety car. However, earlier in the race, a couple of occasions did happen where this may not have been the case. So have a look here. This is the first restart. Now you can see Sergio Perez just here, just in front of the Ferrari, and look down the road. There's absolutely no sign of the safety car whatsoever. It's completely absent. That's more than 10 car lengths. That's not really allowed. Then on the second restart, you can see Sergio Perez has dropped right back, and the safety car there, quite clearly more than 10 car lengths off down the road, but crucially with the safety car lights on. Again, another potential breach of the regulations. However, there is a little bit of a precedent this season for this. Sebastian Vettel dropped back more than 10 car lengths from the car in front during the Canadian Grand Prix, but the FIA didn't penalise him as he closed up the gap before they reached the first safety car line. Well, did Sergio Perez close up the gap before the safety car switched its lights on one of those restarts? It's not entirely clear, but we did hear Lewis Hamilton complaining about Sergio Perez on the restart, and we did get a warning from Red Bull going to Perez. The Mexican driver is going to be up in race control at 5 minutes to the hour, and after that, We will find out if it's 1 penalty, 2 penalties, and I'm not sure where the 5 seconds have come from, but whether it's 2 5-second penalties, more than that, or nothing at all. We'll wait and see, Laura, but it's going to be quite exciting where you are, I suspect.
Yeah, we continue to speculate down here in the paddock, and it seems a shame after a race of such quality, of such brilliant driving and attacking racing, that we are actually deciding it potentially in the steward's office. But that is the way it's going at the moment, so we wait to see whether Perez can claim his 4th career victory or not. A word on Charles Leclerc, if we may, because yes, P2 over the line, under the checkered flag, but the attacking driving, the clean battling he had with Perez leading into sort of the last 30 minutes of that race was brilliant, but he just lost a bit of the pace and a bit of the time as we came into the final few laps.
Yeah, he was putting Sergio under a lot of pressure there towards the end. I think as well, this track, it's a very difficult track to overtake, and what made it even more difficult this race was when they were on slick tires, offline it was still a bit damp. So even if you tried to make an overtake, you'd break offline, it'd be damp, and it's super easy to lock up. I think that happened to Max when he tried overtaking. No, that was under the safety car, but there were a couple guys that tried going offline under braking, and they'd lock up and go wide, and then would actually end up losing time. So it's a hard place to overtake. Plus, when it's damp offline, it makes it even more difficult.
I know, the challenges out there today were extraordinary, not least, of course, the conditions as well. The humidity, too, has just been brilliant. You mentioned there issues for certain drivers, and one such driver was Lewis Hamilton, who hit the wall with such force, he almost lost his wing, managed to get back round into the pits. He then had an issue in the battle for P7 with Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. It was quite the day for Lewis, one perhaps to forget. Let's hear from him now.
Yeah, Lewis, that looked like a really hard day in the office. Just run me through your emotions right now.
I don't really have much emotion at the moment. It's a pretty flat, pretty poor day. Yeah, pretty rubbish day, to be honest. And but I feel okay. I'm just looking forward to tomorrow.
When you slid into the barriers, were you surprised at just how okay the car roughly was? Because it looked like quite an impact when you went straight in.
Not really. I don't feel like I hit it too hard. So, yeah, I thought that I would have damaged my wing, but that's about it. So, and that's what happened.
All right, thanks.
Well, Lewis Hamilton, a man of few words and disappointed words, that very much looking forward to putting today behind him. It was a tough one for Lewis Hamilton, and certainly after such a promising qualifying lap we saw from him as well. P3, but oh so close to pole, at a place where he knows how to get it done.
Yeah, and he was in the mix there in the race until, unfortunately, that mistake happened. I was surprised he was able to continue, because it was actually a pretty big hit in the wall. And he was able to reverse and still carry on. They changed the front wing. But yeah, ended up losing a bit too much time there with what happened, and couldn't quite recover to where he was.
Max Verstappen very keen on the race radio to say that front wing could come off that car. He needs to get into the pits quick. He was on it, wasn't he?
Yeah, for sure, because you always want to, it's tough to overtake here, so if there's something you can push your rival or, you know, your opponent to box and gain that position, you're going to try for it. And to be fair, it was a pretty hard hit. You never know when the front wing can break off, so I think it was a right call to box and change it. And a good recovery, but you never know what would have happened if you would have been able to stay there and finish the race, maybe fight for a podium.
Yeah, I think a podium was probably certainly in Lewis's hands today, but not to be for Mercedes. Just 2 points for them from today, and indeed George Russell with a very difficult task at hand anyway, on a track in which it's very, very hard to overtake, and as you say, the conditions making it all the harder. George Russell then, starting from the pit lane, P20. I mean, he finishes P14, of course, thanks to the multiple drivers who have either crashed out or had engine failures or whatever else. But he was the first to gamble onto slicks. He pulled the trigger, which I loved from him. I loved that courage. I loved that bravery. But was it a risk too far?
Yeah, it was actually in the engineering room with us. We were actually considering, I think, you know, the engineers were considering boxing one of the Haas cars at that moment when George did it, and they initially saw the sector times. They're like, maybe it's a little bit too early, because this place, it's really deceiving here, the asphalt. It's like, it looks like it's drying, but the track is still super slippery. So it takes a very long time for it to actually gain grip, and the slicks took a long time to be quicker than the intermediate tires. So yeah, he was the first one, and unfortunately, he was kind of the gauge for everybody else to know when it is the actual time to box and put slicks on.
Yeah, he was the guinea pig, wasn't he? And it wasn't until around lap 34 that suddenly we saw some fastest laps from George Russell where it looked like, okay, the slicks are now beginning to work. George also had that moment as well with Mick Schumacher. I am told we've got a driver fast approaching, but of course the problem. Oh, well, here he is. Where is he? Where is he? Oh, we're not the driver. They said here he is. But they mean this incident with Mick Schumacher and George Russell. No further action deemed by the stewards, but it was quite the moment, wasn't it? Quite the contact between George and Mick fighting for that line.
Yeah, obviously, Mick wasn't happy with that contact. Unfortunately, they both got a puncture, and I don't know if maybe Mick could have been fighting for the points there at that time. I think maybe at the end he would have had a shot, so it was unfortunate that happened. It was it was going to be an important result for the team. They just kind of collided under braking. It's hard to really put one guy at fault. I think George kind of moved quite aggressively under braking there, but at the end, the FIA judged it a racing incident.
Yeah, I think Will in commentary, Will Buxton, quite surprised there was no action taken against George Russell, but that is what the stewards have deemed, and indeed we await, of course, to hear whether they will allow Sergio Perez to keep this win or whether the safety car infringements will see Charles Leclerc victor today in Singapore. Another man who had a day to forget is Max Verstappen. He was involved in multiple incidents along the way, contact with Kevin Magnussen, of course, nearly into the back of Lando Norris as well. That was a real moment. And then, of course, as you said earlier, locking up and just getting straight into the runoff, and then battling with Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel for P7. Quite the day from him, but let's hear from him now.
Hey Max, for everyone watching it, looked like an exciting race and you made it exciting, but I guess the frustration is there. Nothing really went right for you today, did it?
Yeah, for me in the car was zero enjoyment, of course. Anti-stall, then drop back, tried to pass a few cars, being stuck behind cars. Getting back into a decent spot on the slicks, tried to pass Lando, but as soon as I went alongside him, I hit the brakes and I bottomed out completely, so my front tires came up and I locked up massively, so I just went straight. I had to pit again, of course, because of the flat spots, and I had to start all over again, and still got back to 7, but I mean, that's of course not what we are here for.
Can you take a little consolation that at least there's still several more races to go and you have still got a comfortable lead in the championship?
I mean, that's of course not the problem. It's just a really frustrating weekend, starting already yesterday.
Did you find some good answers with the team last night after you'd had a good chat with them?
I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, just need to look at on the sensor and the data. I mean, fuel level is fuel level, right?
All right, thanks, Max.
Zero enjoyment for Max Verstappen. So while I think we loved watching this race and we loved the ensuing chaos and drama and all that went on, as goodness me, the paddock is being ripped apart around us, so late in the day we are, Max Verstappen had zero enjoyment today. And I mean, after the incidents we saw, we're not surprised. We'll start with him almost going into the back of Lando Norris under safety car.
Yeah, I'm not sure at that time if it was ending the safety car or if it was just beginning. I think it was ending at the time, and there's a delta you have to follow on the dash, and sometimes if you think it's ending, you might anticipate it a bit too quick, and then you realize that if it ends and you're still going at that speed, you're going to get a penalty. So I think they both kind of braked, or I think it was Lando who braked a little bit too much, and Max just got it out of the way just in time. It would have been a mega shunt, to be honest, but yeah, it's hard sometimes because you're following the delta and you want to kind of gain an advantage on the guy. As you can see there, he went straight, turned it around. I think probably braked offline over there. But yeah, it's always difficult in these conditions. And that virtual safety car, honestly, personally, I don't like it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd much rather have safety cars because it brings the race together. It's exciting and stuff. The virtual safety car as a driver, it's hard to follow. There's always some ways you can try to gain an advantage, but it's, for me, it's boring, the virtual safety car. I think it should be a safety car every time there's a big shunt.
We love it. Thanks for your opinion. That's why we get you on the show, Pietro. And of course, you also saw there in that montage of Max Verstappen moments to forget from today, the lockup. And I mean, it looked as though in the camera shot that they managed to get it on as well, he was going straight into the camera as we've got people waving. Felipe Massa waving to us, who looks a happy man. Yes, Max Verstappen just running off. And I mean, at that point, you know, his race was pretty much over, or at least the race for the podium, the race for the big points was pretty much done.
Yeah, I was done, but I mean, he still has a massive lead in the point standing going into Suzuka, home race for Honda. You know, maybe it's better this way. He'll win there in Japan, and it's going to be a huge celebration if he does win the World Championship there.
Yeah, there's so much maths to be done just on this race alone. I haven't yet seen the permutations for how Max Verstappen can win in Japan, but obviously his first chance of winning was here. It's not happened here. We move on, of course, to Japan next up. As I say, we still await to hear whether Sergio Perez is indeed the winner of this race or not. We'll get you that information as soon as we can. We're hoping for a few of the drivers to come to the desk as well, and we've got water waiting for them, because I think every driver that we've seen coming out the car and heading into the media pen just here to my left-hand side have been absolutely exhausted. But I am hearing right now Will Buxton's out the commentary box roaming about, and he's with Christian Horner, so let's hear more.
Christian, first of all, what a drive from Checo Perez today. We heard it over the radio. Probably, I'd say probably definitely his best drive ever in Formula 1.
Without a shadow of a doubt, that was absolutely world class. I mean, he converted the start. He obviously had the tricky conditions on the inters. He kept them alive. You know, they went on and on and on, getting to that crossover point, and then he got the crossover, then a safety car, and getting those medium tires fired up and working. When you're the lead car, it's always harder to judge. When you're the follow car, it's always easier to see the grip the car ahead of you has got. And under massive pressure from Charles and Ferrari, I thought he drove absolutely wonderfully today. And he finally broke the DRS. You know, Charles made a mistake. He got the second, and then he was able to eke that out to over 7 seconds at the end.
There's been so much pressure on him in recent races, so much talk in the press of him falling off Max and the car maybe taking a direction that he wasn't entirely happy with. What a swing back in performance from him here. And on a day when so many world champions made mistakes, Checo was perfect.
Checo was perfect today, and you know, the team have been working hard with him to find a setup that suits him. You know, he loves street circuits. We've seen that in Azerbaijan. We've seen it in Monaco. Now here in a slippery Singapore, he's done it again, and this will give him a big boost into this final phase of the championship.
A frustrating day for Max Verstappen. We've just heard from him in the show. He said he had no enjoyment out there today.
That was a tough race. I mean, he's starting out of position. He then had a horrible start, got an anti-stall. And then, you know, he was patient. He was coming back through the field. It's very hard to pass here. Got himself back into the top 5 at the restart, you know, onto the slick tires. And then, unfortunately, the car, you know, bottomed out. I think that the pace behind the safety car was so slow that you could see everybody's pressures were dropping, and you know, that hurt him hard. A big flat spot. Then he had to pit, but then his comeback again thereafter. The 2 final laps where he picked off both Lewis and Sebastian were outstanding.
Now listen, we got to touch on it, because obviously got to go and see the stewards after the race. Is it frustrating to be standing here now? The flag is down, the podium's done, and we don't have an answer as to whether Checo's going to be able to keep this brilliant win.
I cannot believe that is not a victory for Checo. That, for me, is a non-issue. We see it so many times that you know, on formation laps, behind the safety car, cars further back behind the safety car. You know, it would be hugely harsh to penalise him for that, and you know, but that's why we kept the hammer down at the end. So you know, honestly, I'd be amazed if there was an issue.
We saw a precedent earlier in the year where Seb had dropped more than 10 car lengths back, but he'd caught it up by the safety car line, and so didn't get a penalty.
Yeah.
Do you like the fact that you have a chance to go to the stewards and argue your case, or should precedent be taken into consideration during a race and penalties applied within the race? What's the perfect scenario, do you see?
I think, you know, you have, sometimes the stewards don't have all the information to hand, so they obviously want to see the driver and hear his side of the story. And, you know, Derek Warwick's a very experienced steward up there, plus the other guys. You know, they'll listen, and there is so many precedents. Like, we could probably pull out 100 of them over the last 10 years. So, you know, I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if that went any further.
I think we all would. Thank you, Christian.
Okay, thanks.
Strong words from Christian Horner, and we expect no less. But Pietro, you are nodding in agreement that it would be very harsh at this point, given what we have seen before under safety car from other drivers in other instances, for them to penalise Checo Perez and take the win away from him.
Yeah, for me, I think Checo should have the win. If they penalize him, maybe 5 seconds, which then he should still keep the win. They shouldn't do a double penalty on that, which then would be 10 seconds. I think firstly because usually in situations like that, they try to avoid it for safety grounds, but the way he restarted was actually very well. There was no issue with, cars starting and then braking again and then starting. So I think it was pretty clean restart. And I think it was safer that way. The worst thing that can happen on a safety car restart if the leader waits all the way to like the start-finish line, because then everybody that's in the back starts getting excited and they try to, start a little bit earlier than the leader, and then that's when you get big accidents happening. So I think the way he did it, maybe a little bit too much gap to the safety car, but it was fine. It was clean. He didn't accelerate, then decelerate. It was just one clean start, and it was good.
Well, Red Bull will argue their case. They have the chance to do so, of course, as we still await the decision results provisional for now. Well, from sort of mixed fortunes, I suppose, for Red Bull, a bad day for Mercedes, a decent day for Ferrari, to a great day for Aston Martin. We'll touch on it, we'll come to it, but let's hear first now from Lance Stroll.
Hey Lance, congratulations. Cracking race, cracking performance, but it looked really tough out there. I think you just nicked that bottle of water, right?
Yeah, it was a tough one. So happy to pick up a bunch of points, that's for sure.
How pleased are you with the outright performance of the car? Because I know the weather affected things and all sorts, but you just haven't really had the run of it this year. So this result must be really encouraging.
Yeah, we've got like a lot of P10s this year. We've had chances for big results, but whatever reason, things happen, never really scored it. And today, things just went our way. And nice to pick up a bunch of points.
Great stuff, congrats.
Double points for Aston Martin. That means they leapfrog Pietro and AlphaTauri in the standings. Those two teams now equal on points, but a great day for Aston Martin. A brilliant drive from Sebastian Vettel as well, who started P13.
Yeah, they had pace. I mean, even in the wets, in the slick tires as well. They had very good pace most of the race. I think there was a time where either Kevin or Mick were behind them, but we just couldn't quite match the pace they had this weekend. So it's unfortunate for us because I think that fight for P7 in the standings and the constructors and even P6 is extremely important for the team. So we definitely need to find something in the next couple of races, especially Japan, high downforce track. I think it'll be good for Haas, but we need to score points.
And it's a shame as well for Kevin Magnussen, while we just touch on Haas, because it was so promising after yesterday with him starting in P9 and with a brilliant qualifying session, and Mick somewhere up there as well, P12, and no points today. Points could have been possible, couldn't they, for Haas, given how the race unfolded too? Yeah,
it could have been possible. I think we had more pace on the intermediate tire than we did the slicks, but I think if some of the things that happened, like the change of the front wing and then Mick not getting the puncture, that didn't happen and we were in a position of top 10, we would have been able to maybe hold, to get a point or two. And I think that's important because if you see the standings, as I said, it's extremely close. And I think by the end of the year, those 1 or 2 points are going to make a big difference.
Yeah, of course, Kevin Magnussen with contact with Max Verstappen early on in the race, and he having to pit while we were under safety car conditions, of course, for Nicholas Latifi and Guan Yu Zhou. The contact between those two, or rather the contact of Nicholas Latifi into Zhou, which has given Latifi a 5-place grid penalty heading into Suzuka next weekend. Another team who have had a brilliant day, given the fact that on Friday we were saying how much they were struggling, is McLaren. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, a P4 and a P5 for them. For Daniel Ricciardo, that will be music to his ears. For Lando Norris, just cementing and maximising what that car's capable of.
Yeah, for sure. I think Lando had an excellent race, executed the whole race. And then Daniel as well with the safety car. I think they got, because they were in the mix there with Mick and Kevin, I think they got a little bit lucky. He was one of the only cars who hadn't pit, and then safety car happened, and they were able to jump a bunch of cars. So I think that's a mega result for them.
And Daniel Ricciardo, one of the first men on softs, as well, wasn't he? While everyone else was on the mediums, it was Valtteri Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo who went, I'm going straight onto softs.
Yeah, and I think that was the right call. I think the soft tires seem to have more pace than the medium. Some people were worried it wouldn't last the whole race, but it did, and it definitely had more pace. We were struggling to get the right temperature with the medium tire. So with the soft one, if we would have put soft, it would have been much better, at least for us in the Haas car. Well,
we've talked about this battle, of course, for P7 in the championship. The battle for P4 rages on, and Alpine had brought out a 16-point gap. McLaren have now leapfrogged them into P4. We can hear from what I hope will be a very happy Andreas Seidel.
Andreas, McLaren leaves Singapore 4th in the Constructors' Championship. A wonderful race from both your drivers. How happy are you right now?
Yeah, very happy. I think the team today did an excellent job. in making the right calls on the strategy side as well. It was important to be patient because in the first stint we were already in good positions. Yeah, then what a drive from both drivers, Lando and Daniel, not getting anything wrong. It was tricky out there today. We have seen many guys going off or crashing, and yeah, happy to score all these points because they're obviously important for us in the battle we're in against the Alpines.
How tough was it to get that call right, given everything that was going on, not just with the track conditions, but the virtual safety car, the safety car, and looking at the lap times that George was running comparative to everyone else?
Yeah, it was very tricky, and I think the most important or most difficult thing was to be patient enough because of course you're tempted then when you see that the green sectors are coming in on George's side to do the same. But at the same time we're not in the need to take any risk because we were in good positions at the time, and the team did an excellent job together with both drivers. Good communication as well, and yeah, got it right. So very happy with that. Very happy also that the team back home under the leadership of James and Pierce brought this upgrade to the track here because it was very important, I guess, for the rest of the season in order to make another step with the performance, but also to get a clear direction what we want to do with the car for next year. So yeah, a lot of positives. At the same time, we don't get carried away with it. We know it will be a tough battle with the Alpines that are strong as well until the end of the season, but back in the game.
So nearly a podium for Lando as well. He got so close at one point, but a word today for Daniel as well. In the old car, we saw it come alive for him on Saturday when the rain fell. Conditions played just right for him today, but a really strong drive for him too.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy for Daniel and for his entire crew in the garage and on the engineering side. It was a tough season so far this year, and everyone worked so hard, including Daniel, in order to get a good result. And thanks to a great drive from his side today, thanks to a great job also from his crew, we could score these important points today for him, for us, and yeah, I'm very happy about that.
Many congratulations. Thanks.
Cheers.
Well, Andreas Seidel not getting carried away, not getting complacent just yet. Of course, still 5 races to go, and that battle for P4 is tight, but they've made big strides today, not least for their drivers' confidence and certainly for Daniel Ricciardo's confidence, who has been struggling so much. And I mean, out in Q1 as well on Saturday, it was a blow for him, but he got that car working. And as Will just really importantly said, the old car, not the one with the shiny new upgrades that Lando was driving.
Yeah, so I think it's a mega result for him. Obviously, with the safety car, he was able to jump the positions, but there was a still long way into the race. So, you know, long way to go, and he was able to have good pace and stick to P5, and it definitely wasn't easy conditions. So, yeah, very good race for him, for McLaren as well, to jump to P4 in the Constructors, because at the end, the Constructors Championship, it's money for the team at the end of the season. So it makes a big difference, you know, to help you with budgets for next season. So that's why it's so important sometimes to be able to get those points, and, you know, to finish between 5th or 4th in the Constructors makes a big difference in terms of budget.
Yeah, it's so exciting for us to follow as well. Yes, the top of the standings may be somewhat decided at this point, all but decided. It's a matter of when, not if, perhaps now. But actually, these mini battles we see, the races within races of the battle for P4, the battle for P7, they're what F1 is all about, the very sort of fabric of the sport and the teams that operate within it.
Yeah, because it's not just about bragging rights. Oh, I finished 4th and Alpine finished 5th. It's really millions of dollars on the line. So that's why it's so important. Those points, sometimes when you lose a point or two in a race and it makes a difference at the end of the year, it's like, oh, that 1 point could have been a couple million more that the team would have had. So yeah, definitely very important.
And you can see why drivers are fighting tooth and nail for P10, P9, P8. One driver who was fighting today but just overcooked it. He was top in terms of the drivers who haven't raced here before on the grid coming into this one. Double points for AlphaTauri look possible, but not to be for Yuki Tsunoda. We can hear from him now.
Hey Yuki, sorry to see you here because it looked like at points in this race you had really good pace. Just talk me through that moment where you kind of just lost grip.
Yeah, I was not running, I guess, in the points anyway. But yeah, it just was difficult condition. But anyway, I did mistake by myself. I just completely misjudged the braking points. That's completely my fault, and yeah, no excuse.
Oh, Oh, a very disappointed Yuki Tsunoda. You can hear it in his voice and the hesitation when he sort of began to speak to Lawrence of just how he'd get his words out. A difficult day for him, a difficult day as well for Alpine. They had so much promise on Friday. They brought this new floor to both cars. They were really getting stuck into this fight for P4, and then it all went wrong. Engine, power unit issues for both drivers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if it's conditions, maybe because it's so hot or the humidity, but it's weird to sometimes have both cars of the same team, same power unit, have, you know, an engine issue. So I don't know if it's, you know, related to the conditions here in Singapore. But yeah, unfortunately, because Alonso was having a great race. I think he was in the top 5. Ocon was as well in the top 7. And then, yeah, that's a big blow in points.
Yeah, Alonso running P6 when he retired, having been overtaken by Lando Norris, but very much in the battle with him. And they were sort of debating whether or not he'd go on to slicks. And then suddenly it was all over, and we saw yellow flag in one of the sectors pop up, and it was Fernando Alonso. Number of laps later, it was Esteban Ocon with a slightly more dramatic retirement as well. Smoke coming out the car, fluid coming out the car, and for Alpine, a day to forget.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Alonso as well. I think if there would have been the safety cars at the end, he's always a good racer. He knows how to keep his tire temps up, and in conditions how we had at the end of those safety car restarts, I'm sure he would have been fighting for some more positions there.
Retirements today then, just to go over it, for Yuki Tsunoda, who we've just heard from, for Esteban Ocon as well, for Alex Albon, who just went so hard into that wall, got his front wing actually wedged in. They're having to really yank it out, and then a DNF for the Williams driver, of course, just back from respiratory failure, we must say. So brilliant for him to even be in a very difficult Singapore race itself. Fernando Alonso, Nicholas Latifi and Guan Yu Zhou, all DNFs for today. We are waiting, actually, for some drivers to come from the pen. As I said, conditions here very difficult for the drivers, and I'm expecting to see some quite sweaty, tired drivers come. I mean, how challenging, arduous, savage is it to not just drive in these conditions, but also to battle in the way we've seen these drivers do out on track?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, I'm just sweating standing.
Yeah.
So imagine 2 hours in the car, and actually when it rains and then it starts drying, that moisture that comes up makes it even more humid, so you sweat even more. And it's more of a physical, because this track is so many corners, not many straights. And as well, yeah, the dehydration throughout the race. If you sweat a lot, you have to make sure you're getting fluids in throughout the race. So for sure in the safety cars, they were using the drink button to be able to drink some water. Because if you start dehydrating, that takes a toll mentally. You start, you know, your reflexes get a bit slower. So it's important to stay hydrated, not get dehydrated. And make sure you're good to the end of the race.
That's it. Dehydration has such an enormous impact on mental performance, on, as you say, your reactions, on the decision making, which are vital, you know, for any performing athlete, let alone when you're careering around a street circuit at 200k an hour.
Yeah, like when I raced this year, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it was very hot as well. There were drivers getting dehydrated. Some of the big teams actually had units where the driver after his stint would go and get an IV to be able to replenish, you know, all the fluids in his body again. So, because it's a lot quicker than if you're just drinking water or electrolytes. You put the IV in your arm and you're able to get hydrated much faster. So, you know, when teams are fighting for 24-hour races and they know that dehydration can be a problem, they do everything possible to make sure the driver never gets in that state, because they know it's a performance loss.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we've heard from a number of drivers from Lawrence Barretto in the pen, one of which now is George Russell, who had an eventful race.
So George, it just looked like a very difficult afternoon out there. Was that gamble to take the slicks worth it?
Well, we were in no man's land, to be honest, but potentially it was, because at the restart we were flying over, took 3 people on 1 lap after the safety car. But obviously I had the tangle with Mick. I don't really know what happened there. I felt like I left him plenty of space. We would have probably finished inside the points because we were flying, and then obviously got the fastest lap at the end by almost 2 seconds. So pleased that the issues from yesterday in FP1 have been resolved, and I guess a bit of confidence restored that I haven't lost it, and I didn't qualify 3 seconds off the pace due to lack of talent or whatever. But such a shame. We had a car to win this week.
Does it feel like it was just one that kind of got away? Because that pace that you showed at the end is super encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're making loads of progress as a team. That I'm proud about. we're here to win races. Points are always great. We've had a very good run of results, and this is probably the first weekend as a team, bar Silverstone, that we slipped up, myself included. So, how it goes.
Hard luck. Thanks.
Well, good to hear from George Russell, but we can hear now from a driver who finished P5 today on what was a brilliant, brilliant race for McLaren. Daniel Ricciardo joins us now with a crowd of his fans assembled as well. Daniel, congratulations. A great race for you, a great race for McLaren. Firstly, can I just ask physically how you're feeling right now? Because we've given you water. You say you need a pillow and perhaps a beer as well. I mean,
it's
what
late.
Conditions?
I'm more like tired, sleepy than physically exhausted. I mean, it's always hot and 2-hour race here. It's long, and being a street circuit and in tricky conditions, like mentally, the concentration's so high that you're just pretty sleepy right now. But I'm very, very happy to finally get back in the top 5. It's my first this year, which is a little sad, but I'm also very happy to finally get back in there. And good one for the team as well. 4th and 5th. It's we were due this, and happy to pull off a good day.
Up to P4 in the constructor standings as well. So a great day, as I say, for the team and for yourself too. Talk me through your race, not from start to finish. It was quite a long one, wasn't it, really? But the key moments that mean you are standing here P5 and how you saw them from the cockpit.
Alrighty, race recap. Here we go. Good start. Good start. I think I got three cars on lap 1, so that helped. And then it was very easy to be.
We've got Lando Norris as well.
Lando.
Hello, Ricciardo Daniel.
I was just talking through my race.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I want to hear it.
From start to finish,
Here
even though I said to, summarise, but
I'll
carry
be
on.
quick.
You two got to have my lap review.
Made a good start, 3 positions lap 1, and then it was very tempting to be like the first on a slick when you're kind of just on the outside of the top 10. You want to be the hero and make up. It's your chance to make up big time, but I was not convinced the track was still there. It was as tempting as it was. I felt like we still just needed to buy our time, and Russell George went out, and I think he was quite slow for a bit, and then Gasly as well. So we were gaining time, and even though the tyre didn't feel that great, it was still the smart thing to do. So I think we were just patient. Then we got the safety car, and that was made everything pretty peachy for us. So maturity, patience, top 5, baby.
Love it. Love that. Lando, congratulations, P4 today.
Thanks.
A brilliant day in which you maximised the car. Don't talk me through your race in such detail, but a reaction to what you've done today. P4 for you, P4 for McLaren as well in the constructor standings, and standing side by side with your teammate who's up there too.
Yeah, it's cute, huh?
It's emotional.
Super cute.
Yeah. I was thinking of you while driving today, actually.
Thank you.
Especially on the softs. I was like, come on, be nice to him.
Lap 1, I was like, it was pretty good, and then, all right.
I was like, oh, he's just behind me. No, he's not. Bye, tyres. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the moment, but we are live.
Yeah, this is pure content. Yes, I had a great race. What do you say? Us 10?
Hashtag content.
Yeah, I had a good start ahead of Fernando, which was
nice.
Yeah. So that was perfect, and then the pace was just very good from then on. I tried to keep up with the guys ahead, but they were just way too fast, and had a good gap. Stayed well. Max got behind me, and it was not easy to keep him behind. He had
we want to talk about that, if I may interject, because of the safety car restart. Because I don't know if you have seen it or know how close he was.
Oh, I know how close
We've got the iPad somewhere for you to look at. I'm not sure where, but he was so close to going right into the back of you. It could have been quite a big one.
Too close, huh? I think that's like a 20-place grid penalty next weekend.
It was close.
Yeah. Oh, hi.
Your reaction to seeing that?
Sorry, my hair. No, I knew it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him in my left mirror, just how quickly he had to dart left. I don't know what he was like, really, like, he risked a lot, because even I went under the delta for a very brief period, and he must have been like well under the delta if he was almost ahead of me. So it got close. He had another attempt and went straight on and locked up, caused a bit of a show for the fans. But it worked out.
Helped you get a P5.
Helped you get a P5, so
good defense.
I thought of that. I was like, I'll force him into the wet patch. He's going to lock up. That'll help Daniel, and and so on. And yeah, it all paid off in the end.
Team effort all the way. And Daniel, I must say, you managed P5 with the old car. Lando, of course, with the upgrades. The upgrades coming for you in Japan.
I know what
not
you're
to rub it in, not
Mine's
to...
like 2 seconds a lap quicker.
Let's just say it already. I would have been P2 today. Yeah.
At least.
But that must give you hope, must give you guys a lot of positive momentum heading into Japan.
Arigato.
Okay, good.
Arigato.
Are we done?
Arigato gozaimasu.
A pleasure as always. Thank you
you.
very much, boys. Well done today. P4 in the constructor standings as well. The battle with Alpine continues, and that was the usual chaos that I have come to expect from interviewing not just one, but both McLaren drivers together. I mean, they are quite the pairing. Good to hear from Lando and see actually that reaction up close of him seeing the safety car restart moment with Max Verstappen firsthand.
Yeah, because sometimes you could definitely see it in your mirror, you know, so I'm sure he saw something fly by him and was lucky Max didn't hit him. And then as well, him saying that he was worried when Daniel was on soft tires behind him because that pace initially was really good. But at the end, he was able to keep the P4.
He was indeed, and not the day for Alpine, though. They'll be looking to fight back. Of course, a new floor meant they should have been competitive here, could have been competitive here. Poor qualifying for Ocon due to a brakes issue, and then both drivers out. You can still hear the shouts for both Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris, who are in a jubilant mood this afternoon, this evening. Time zones.
Almost morning now.
I know. Are we into Monday morning? I think we may be. We may be sooner. We are still waiting. Yeah, I've just been told we are indeed in Monday morning now. Strange. And we are still waiting to hear whether Sergio Perez has actually won this race or not. I mean, it's quite a peculiar position for us all to be in.
Yeah, like I said before, I hope he keeps the win because he definitely deserves it. But I don't know, I'm like 99% sure that he'll have the win. I'll be very surprised if they give him a 10-second penalty.
Well, famous last words. As it is Monday morning, we are going to wrap things up here from the paddock. It was great to have the McLaren boys on, and Pietro, wonderful to have you here as well as you just wave goodbye and blow kisses to your many fans here. Let's take a look at the results as things stand right now here at the Singapore Grand Prix. It is Sergio Perez who takes his 4th career victory. Safety car investigation pending. We then have Charles Leclerc in P2, a brilliant drive from him, but not quite enough today. Carlos Sainz P3, as we've just seen. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, the McLaren pairing, P4 and P5. A great day for Aston Martin. Lance Stroll in P6. Max Verstappen, zero enjoyment for him today. He is P7. P8 for Sebastian Vettel, a brilliant drive from the 4-time world champion as well. Lewis Hamilton, P9, with again a day to forget. Really tricky out there. Pierre Gasly, the last point scorer. Valtteri Bottas just outside in P11. Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher of Haas, sadly P12 and P13 for Pietro alongside me. George Russell, P14. And then it was DNFs for Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, Nicholas Latifi, and Zhou. Goodness me, what a race we have seen. The drama, the intrigue, the crossover, the decision to, bite the bullet and get onto the slicks. It had everything, didn't it? What was your highlight of the race, if you can pick one out?
I think the highlight was, for me, definitely the start. I mean, the start is always exciting, although nothing crazy happened. It was unfortunate with us, with Kevin breaking his wing. And then for me, the highlight was Sergio winning because he's a good friend of mine, so I'm very happy with him. He's a real, racer, hustler. He always does well on a street circuit, so super happy for him and looking forward to going to Japan tomorrow.
Well, as things stand, Sergio Perez is race winner here in Singapore. Of course, keep across all of F1 social media for the latest breaking news. We hope, of course, that the results will stand for Sergio Perez and Red Bull's case, but we may see what Ferrari have to say about that. We await the results, but it's been a brilliant race here in Singapore. Huge thanks to Pietro Fittipaldi, my co-host, to Will Buxton, who was on Rome and in commentary alongside Jolyon Palmer and Sam Collins, and to Lawrence Barretto as well in the pen, getting all the driver reaction. What a race. We will do it all over again in Japan, and we'll see you there next week.